Don't look at us. Don't look at us. We want privacy. We want privacy.
Yes, we want privacy.
Don't look at us. Don't look at us. We want privacy. We want privacy.
Don't look at us. Please, don't look at us. Look at us, look at us. Oh, you broke my fan.
We want privacy. We want privacy. Don't look at us. Respect our privacy.
Yes, we want privacy. Yes, we want privacy.
We want privacy. Watch our programs and read our books, but don't look at us. You're so cool. We want privacy. We want privacy.
Yes, we want privacy.
Hello, my old fruits, and welcome to the broadcast. I hope you're having a lovely weekend so far. I've had a rotten one so far. This morning has been tempestuous, and it's due to a dispute with neighbours. I'm sure some of you will be able to relate to this. You know, when you get a bad lot, and these particular neighbours, when I first met their acquaintance, were so sweet, so sickly sweet, that I never trusted them. You know, when something seems just too good to be true, I knew what was waiting round the corner, because I could sense the Fruit Loopishness that was going on under those still sugary saccharine waters. I could sense it. And this week it's come to one of several heads. I had a rotten run-in, but as charming, considerate, and graceful as I can be as a neighbour. I am the neighbour of anybody's dreams. I am telling you this in all truth. I am the most considerate, neighbourly person you could wish to have living near you. If you try me, my dear, you try me, you'll get me. Get it? Got it? Good. Okay, so, sorry my dears, but one has to get certain things out of one's system. And by the way, some of you are going to ask about the rhea, aren't you? The rhea, yes, it's amazing. It's astonishing how one's hair can just grow overnight when the sun starts shining in the early spring, isn't it? No, it's, as I've mentioned before, I do get extensions in my hair a lot, so that's why the length and the styling moves about quite a lot. And I call it my rhea, dear, which for those of you that don't know is Polari for hair. It's hair spelled backwards. The rhea, my dear. And for those of you that might say that it's too long for me, I agree with you. Long hair doesn't especially suit me, but I'm playing with it because they've been freshly bonded, these extensions, and I want to play with them before I give them the chop. And I might as well take this moment to address or indulge a few questions that I'll often get with regards to, am I trans or am I transitioning? And the answer to both questions is simply but firmly, no, 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 no. There's really been no change since the dawn of this channel, other than the styling. Sometimes I'll present more flamboyant than others, sometimes the hair will be longer or more styled in different ways, but the basic river hasn't changed at all. And in my regular daily life, it's more or less the same affair. I have a certain androgynous style, and sometimes I'll play up to one side of it, and sometimes I'll play up to another. It's the dressing up box of life, isn't it, my dears? And that's the way it's been throughout my entire life, without exception. There isn't a year gone by when I haven't expressed myself as I want to do. I got a comment from Fee who says, "Dearest River, please tell us if you saw the epic, savage and hilariously accurate South Park episode that utterly roasts the prince and his Instagram-loving witch wife." Although the word wasn't actually witch, it began with a B. "I haven't laughed so hard and so long in ages. I think it will rather tickle your fancy. Love to you, you scrumptious fruit crumble." Oh, well, thank you, dearest Fee. I did see it. Well, I should say I've seen selected highlights of it and read a lot about it. And isn't it fabulous, my dears? I must be honest, it's not especially my humour. It's not the kind of thing that I would sit and laugh out loud at, but I certainly enjoyed it with a wry grin and a sense of satisfaction, because it's been proliferated so far and wide, and it's generated so many headlines. Where are Sunshine Sacks? Where are Sunshine Ball Sacks to defend us and put all the good stuff out there, push all that propaganda candy? Do you think they'll be back on the phone to Ball Sacks? Wouldn't surprise me. But they're doing their own publicity now, aren't they? So it'll be no problem for them. No doubt there'll be tinkering away in the background at some sort of riposte or rubbing their legal gloves together with glee, whetting the legal knife. But the world is cottoning on to those two hustlers. It continues to cotton on bit by bit. No matter how they try and shape the narrative and form public opinion, there will always be those who fall under their spell, because both of them can be very charming. Yes, they can, to the right audience and the right demographic, and to those with a less probing intellect, perhaps. But once you've seen the light, it's scarce forgotten. In fact, it can't be forgotten. And the world is cottoning on to you, my loves. And the creators of this South Park have successfully thrown a spotlight on their absurdity, upon this theatre of the absurd, this theatre of cruelty. They have seen through the cracks and cut no slacks, my dears. For legal reasons, I must make it clear that Meghan and Harry are not specifically named in this cartoon. The Worldwide Privacy Tour features a Canadian prince and his wife who just happened to put one in mind of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, you could say. The audience is left to make up their own minds if they might be referring to any creature living or dead or expired. So, for legal reasons, I must make that very clear, that it is only the impression that me, myself, and the world's press at large seem to have gotten, that they might be pointing a finger in the direction of Montecito. This Prince of Canada promotes his book. Maybe they need to gen up a little more on the art of memoir, this tome that so highly influences J.R. Moehringer. They are seen storming off of a television show after being challenged about their motives. Ring some kind of distant bell, I must confess. And the attention to detail doesn't seem to miss a trick down to the yellow candle at the Queen's funeral, the late Queen's funeral, where, unfortunately for me again, that beautiful visage was obscured from view by a streak of yellow. The Prince of Canada is seen rubbing his frozen todger at a window. And these guys who take themselves so very seriously, my dears, have set themselves up for such a huge fall. You know, pride always comes before a fall. And it's a lesson in humility that they don't seem to have learned. You cannot go through life setting yourself up as the best thing since sliced bread and expect everybody to get on that gravy train, my dear. You can't do that. It's up to other people to come to that conclusion themselves. You can't ram it down their throats. No matter how many award ceremonies you wheel and deal and duck and dive your way into through your associates and your political acquaintances, your stepping stones, your sycophants, those that are actually rinsing you for some association through them. These friends of yours that help you climb socially in that fashion of the arrivist, and the reason that stinks so much, that it is the style of the arrivist, is that Harry is royal born, second son to the king, and the fact that he has degraded himself by following her lead, degraded himself when he was at the top, almost at the top, you know, not the upper echelons like Big Willie, but you know, was still up there, widely admired. She assumed a role that everybody would have loved to have gotten their teeth into, but she thought, can't handle being second best to Katie because no one asks me if I'm okay, and not cut, and the shackle they keep putting me up in just doesn't compare to the furnishings at Kensington Palace. And I can't go wild with my interior designer friends that would just put some beautiful neutrals on all of the walls. And Some candles! Where can I put my candles that have been handmade with love by Soho House to replicate the smell of Soho House? How can I put them around the shackless cottage? How can they demean me? Because I'm the special one. I'm the proud woman who call her Catherine, Lady Katie. She's some old dusty stick. Some ghoul that doesn't compare to me. Why can't the Queen see it? Why can't Charles see it? He's so charming. He's really charming. And so is William. He's really, really charming. I'd love to show him a thing or two if he'd just let me. But I mean, no, not really, Harry. I've been taken over. Pass me the smelling salts. I would never be unfaithful to you, but one can't help but compare Big Willie to little Harold. And you come out on top. Of course you do, my dear, for personality. Because you submit and do exactly as you should do. Because you need a gentle hand, my dear. You need a gentle hand because Mommy's not here anymore. So I'm here to mother you and nurture you and bring you up and raise you the way you should have been done, because you were neglected by your father. Darling boy, darling boy. You were neglected by your father, the king. You are reaping all this ridicule from all corners of the globe due to what you sowed, due to the nonsense that you sowed. Nonsense on stilts. Now, there was a little smattering of nasty business when the king visited Milton Keynes earlier this week. There were some protesters there who were yelling, "Not my king, not my king," and holding up lots of banners, and you would have seen it, and perhaps some of you might have worried, but please do not be afeared. The king was not bothered at all, my dear. Not bothered, brushed it off of his shoulder like water off a duck's back. It really was. And the crowd there was 300 strong. These were about 20 protesters. I believe the whole affair was organised by Graham Smith, who is the CEO of Republic, which are an organisation that want to abolish the monarchy, and they've been waiting for this moment for the Queen to die, this interim period between accession and coronation in particular, to make their point. And if they make it peacefully, I don't really have a problem with it. Obviously, I find it rather ungraceful and vulgar, and I feel very much for the king when he has to witness this kind of thing. But I'd much rather they had organised protest rather than somebody just chucking an egg at the king, you know, or making a physical altercation, saying vile things to Andrew on the day of his mother's funeral, you know, these kind of protests. These are all the things that I say, lock them up, throw away the key, you know, offer their head, my dear, figuratively speaking. But one has to accept that they have the right to make a point. And on the positive side, I think it illustrates to the world the freedom that you have with living under a constitutional monarchy and having a king as head of state. My personal feeling is that although I'm sure it might attract some sympathisers to their cause, and fair enough, I also think that it will put off a ton of people when they see and have seen the king and queen consort going about their duty in their autumn and early winter of life so diligently, so dutifully, and doing a really splendid job of it. I actually think that it will turn people off of some of the causes that are disparaging them, because they can see that they are worth their weight and their service is worth their weight in gold, my dear, gold and diamonds. But there were flowers, bouquets, nosegays and Valentine's stems offered to the king. It was very touching. Some were offered for our beloved Queen Camilla, who has been suffering with illness last week and hopefully well recuperated by now. But she is so adored and so cherished in the kingdom. Evermore, evermore, and in her absence people were sad, but sent their good wishes for a speedy recovery. His Majesty joined the local community as Milton Keynes celebrated officially receiving its city status, and after a community reception in the city, the King also visited Milton Keynes Food Bank to see the work they do to provide short-term crisis support to families and individuals across the city. All great work. His Majesty visited the Church of Christ, the Cornerstone, where he was met by dignitaries. He greeted joyful crowds in abundance and got to witness these glorious dances of India. The king met Ukrainian refugees residing in Milton Keynes with their host families, and he unveiled a commemorative plaque and signed the church book, which was also signed by the late Queen in 1992, to open and dedicate this newly opened church. So there was a wonderful thread of royal history woven from generation to generation. This was rather fun as well for those of you that enjoy a tipple. There is a new gin that's been released. Buckingham Palace have launched this new coronation gin, Royal Windsor Gin. Doesn't it look handsome? With raspberries grown out of Windsor. So it has the personal touch there. I do love the taste of raspberry. I will drink gin if offered to me. It's not one of my favourite tipples, I've got to say. Something about it brings on a headache fairly quickly and gets me drunk and trolleyed fairly quickly, I've got to say. I don't really love gin, although I will have it. I love a gin and bitter lemon. That's something that I will like on a hot day. Gin and bitter lemon, my dear, sort of sums me up. And the Royal Collection Trust said that the gin is spiced with pink peppercorns and cassia bark and sweetened with orange peel and rose petal. Raspberries from across the estate give it a fruity finish and vibrant pink hue, and it's going for 38 quid, that's £38, and the profits go to the Royal Collection Trust, which help fund the care and conservation of the Royal Collection. I'm not sponsored, by the way, but I will encourage you to shop at the Royal Collection. You know, it has a fabulous website. Somebody asked me recently where they could buy their coronation merchandise, for example. Well, that's not up for grabs yet. As far as I know, it'll be announced in coming weeks, I'm sure, as far as coronation merchandise go. But the Royal Collection website, if you Google it, they have an online shop, and also Highgrove has an online shop. They are both absolutely fantastic shops. They'll often have a sale on. The produce is rich in variety, incredible quality. Makes wonderful gifts. I've received a gift from a dear friend, one of the cups that I've shown you that I use. A lovely cup, some shortbread biscuits. I keep meaning to use it more, and I will use it more. It suits most budgets. You can find some little trinkets there for very reasonable price, going up to fairly expensive stuff, you know, if you want to splash out on something fancy, but all decent and reasonable prices for fantastic quality, good value stuff. And I believe they do ship overseas for a fee. And from what I read, they had quite a hard time due to the pandemic, as many people did, with operating losses of 36 million in 2021. But the online shop itself did give them a boost, and that actually tripled its sales during that time, which goes to show you how fun and how good that shop is. Like the Princess Royal, I would like to offer my sincere good wishes to the people of New Zealand who are watching this broadcast. My fruit kiwis, what an awful week you've had. You know, we had Turkey and Syria the week before. This week we've got natural disasters. Cyclone Gabrielle in New Zealand, isn't it? And a message was sent on behalf of Anne. You know, she's been in New Zealand over the past week, and she was scheduled there before they knew anything about this cyclone. She was scheduled to be there for a week-long visit before the cyclone struck on Monday. And her presence in the country was actually requested by the Army's Royal New Zealand Corps of Signals, of which she is Colonel-in-Chief, and she was due to attend its 100th anniversary celebrations, but they were called off, of course, and instead she visited lots of places, but she visited Beehive Bunker and a war memorial with Sir Timothy, and they laid a wreath in the Hall of Memories at one of their national war memorials, and visited the National Crisis Management Centre in Wellington, where she was shown around by your new Prime Minister there, and she visited the New Zealand Riding for Disabled group and handed out rosettes to young riders and volunteers, because she's been involved with that Riding for Disabled group a long time. She was made patron in 1971 and president in 1985. Her Royal Highness opened the Mission to Seafarers New Wellington Mission, unveiling a foundation stone at Wellington Cathedral. She is president of the charity, which provides support for the practical and spiritual welfare of seafarers of all nationalities and faiths. My thoughts are with all New Zealanders whose homes or livelihoods have been affected by Cyclone Gabrielle. I've been given the opportunity to visit the National Disaster and Crisis Headquarters today, and I'm impressed by the major efforts being undertaken by first responders, local and national agencies to ensure the best possible support for everyone, especially those still at risk. I admire the courage of the people of Aotearoa during this alarming and difficult time. You should all be proud of the resilience, strength and care for your communities you are showing in the face of adversity. Kia kaha. The king also met with members of the Syrian and Turkish diaspora communities in London to show his support to those affected at this difficult time in wake of the earthquake. And over 13 million people have been impacted by those earthquakes, 13 million impacted. And at the last count I saw online, it was 35,000 people confirmed dead. That's probably gone up even more now, but such an unspeakable tragedy. And in Hounslow, His Majesty met volunteers who have been collecting, packaging and organising the transportation of food, blankets and warm clothing for the vulnerable in Turkey. In Trafalgar Square, the king launched Syria's House, a temporary Syrian community sort of pop-up tent where members of the Syrian community can come together to support those who need it most. But following on from those sad and melancholy appointments, there was time for some gaiety at Buckingham Palace, where the king hosted a reception in support of action on global biodiversity. He was bringing together ministers, CEOs. No, not you, Meghan. What? There's a reception for CEOs? Well, I want to be there, and I want to tell them what's key, and I want to show them how to be an executive. I want to show them how to be an executive with style, because I am a girl boss. Ministers, CEOs and Indigenous representatives. The event provided an opportunity to discuss the practical delivery of the Global Biodiversity Framework. And oh, look at Johnny there, standing around like a spare part. He does make a fine equerry, doesn't he? But sometimes one gets the impression that he's rather like some sort of stray Christmas ornament that fell off the tree and is just sort of hanging around in a corner a few months after Crimbo. I appreciate your company and I look forward to seeing you in the next broadcast. Thanks for dropping by, my fruits. Have a splendid weekend if you're not having one already, and I'll catch up with you very soon. Toodle pip.